Welcome back, students. We will be looking at 1.7, practice for property of real numbers. Remember in the last video, we learned the terminology for the property of real numbers. So it would probably be handy if you have that list with you to look at as I go through these example problems. All right, so let me scroll up here a little bit. So the question is which property? And basically the clue is to remember to look at what is different about the right side. So the left side is the original side, and then we're going to compare it to see how it changed when we look at the right side. So in number 1, the left side says 3 plus 5. Well, how is the right side different from that? Well, I noticed that the 5 is now first and the 3 is second. So the property that deals with that is the commutative property. The plus sign tells me it's the commutative property of addition, not multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and write in commutative property and I'm going to short it to prop of addition just because I don't have enough room. All right, looking at number 2, we have -9 times 6 plus x in parentheses. Now I need to compare, how did that side change when I look at the right side? Well, now I have -9 times 6 plus -9 times x. Basically, that -9 has been what we call distributed. So this is going to be the distributive property. They had taken that -9 and multiplied it by the 6 and then also by that x. Number 3, I have 4 times 1 on the left side. On the right side, I have just 4. So basically, the original value of 4 didn't change. It stayed itself. So that's going to be the identity property. It kept its identity. Now this is the identity property of multiplication, since it's 2 numbers being multiplied and it's being multiplied by a 1. All right, number 4, we have 5 plus -5, which results in a 0 on the right-hand side. So basically the 5 and the -5 canceled each other out. So remember we talked about in the inverse property of addition, to cancel out numbers, you add its opposite basically. So inverse property of addition. Because the goal is to get 0. Number 5, I have -2, and then I have in brackets 4 times -5. On the other side, I have -2 and 4 in the brackets and -5 outside. So basically, we have a roommate change here. The 4 and the -5 were roommates, but now it's -2 and 4. So the property that deals with that is going to be the associative property. Of multiplication. All right, number 6. Number 6 has 3 over 1 times 1 over 3, and then the right side has it as equaling 1. Well, let me think about this. If I multiply 3 times 1, I get 3, and 1 times 3, I get 3. Well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So what I'm using is the inverse property of multiplication, because the goal was to cancel out that 3 over 1. So I multiplied it by its reciprocal to get a 1. So remember, the difference between the inverse property of addition is the goal is to get a 0. So you use the opposite value to cancel it out. In multiplication, the goal is to get 1. So you use its reciprocal. And I'm going to scroll up just a little bit here. So now we have 12 plus 0 equals 12. We ended up with the original number 12 on the right-hand side. So it didn't change its value. It didn't change its identity. So that's going to be the identity property of addition. So multiplication, you would multiply by 1 to keep its identity. For addition, you would add 0 to keep its identity. Number 8, we have 8 plus and then in parentheses 2 plus 7. On the other side, we have 8 plus and then we have 7 plus 2. This is a tricky one because I noticed something is happening with that parentheses. When typically that's when students think, oh, associative property, something changed with the parentheses. But that's not what's happening here. The parentheses didn't move. And we didn't change who was in the parentheses. We didn't change roommates. All they did was switch the room around, basically. It's still the same roommates. They just changed order. So this one is actually the commutative property of addition because we had an order change. We did not have a roommate change. We did not have an associate change. So this is the commutative property of addition. So don't let those trick you. Don't write down your answer too quick. Make sure you double check and make sure it is, whether it is an order change or a grouping change. Number 9, we have 5 times 1 minus 4. And then on the right-hand side, we have 5 minus 20. Well, I notice if I multiply 5 times 1, I get the 5. If I multiply the 5 times the 4, I get the 20. So what has happened is we have distributed the 5. So this is the distributive property. All right, last few. We have number 10. We have 1 over 8 times 4 over 4. Which equals 4 over 32. And then when we reduce it, we get 1 over 8. Interesting. We started out with 1/8 and we end up with 1/8. So we started here with 1/8 and somehow we ended up with the answer 1/8. Which property deals with keeping the original value of the original number? The identity property. So this is going to be the identity property of multiplication. Now what's important about this is the property that allows us to reduce fractions. It's also the property that allows us to get common denominators so that we can add or subtract fractions. So if you think about 1/8 times 4 over 4, that gave us the 4 over 32. That 4 over 32 is the same value as 1/8. It's just a larger version of itself. But if we reduced it, like we did here, we get 1/8. We go right back to the original. So this is the identity property of multiplication. It's very important. We use it a lot. Actually, you've already been using it and you didn't realize you were using it when you needed to get common denominators or reduce fractions. All right, so number 11, 8 plus 2 plus 7. And then 8 plus 2 plus 7. All right, so we do have a change, but we need to figure out, is it an order change or is it a grouping change? So on the left side, the 2 and the 7 were grouped together. On the, on the left side, the 2 and the 7 were grouped together. On the right side, the 8 and 2 are grouped together. All right, so we have a changing of grouping. Do we have a change of order? 8, 2, 7. 8, 2, 7. No. So the order didn't change. It was who became roommates that changed. So that's going to be the associative property. Of addition. All right, our last one, number 12. We have 2a plus 2b equals 2 times a plus b. So this is like the last one in our terminology notes, actually. I think it was the last one. So I need to think backwards on this one. How did they get from 2a plus 2b to 2 times a plus b. Well, let me take that right side and test something. If I use the distributive property and I distribute that 2 to each of these items, I end up with 2a plus 2b, which is the same as this right here, right? So what they did was they just worked backwards. They factored, which is a form of distributing in the opposite direction, basically. So we're going to put the distributive property here. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. Before we go, though, I want to read our quote. Mathematics reveals its secrets only to those who approach it with pure love for its own beauty. Archimedes. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.